just finished my last class. I just finished my skills class for counseling, and essentially I just learned a bunch of what they call micro skills that help keep a session going. And the reality is counseling sessions are largely client led. So I think a good counselor is going to be able to just kind of probe you to get to the places that you need to get to. Give information when needed, but therapists don't give the answers, but they help you come to a place where you feel confident about moving forward with whatever you're facing. And so yeah, I just finished that class, learned some micro skills, things like, look at this hairline. It's having its own little heyday, isn't it? One of the reasons why I started wanting to do counseling was actually because I struggled with eating disorder behavior. I struggled with ever feeling like I'd have a normal relationship with food, that my life wouldn't constantly be revolved around food. So to be where I am today, where that's not the case for me, is really such a win. And I would love to be able to help other people get out of those cycles of control. If you want us to talk a little bit more about our eating disorder journey, let us know. And if any of you guys are struggling with food things, feel free to comment down below, because I know it can be very isolating, feel very lonely. Totally relate to that. But anyways, now I am going to eat something. Oh, hi Vogue. Welcome to my bathroom. Have you ever seen those videos? Do you know what I'm talking about? But anyways, welcome to my fridge. As you can tell, I am scavenging. As you can tell, I am scouring for options. Yesterday you saw me eating croutons. If you weren't there for that Vlogmas, link down below. But I actually think I'm gonna have some hard-boiled eggs. Yes, I'm gonna have a hard-boiled egg. I'm gonna have, honestly, probably something very similar to yesterday. Some cheese. I'll cut up a cucumber. Fine, make me have my vegetables. Fine. I'll have a little bit of a cucumber and some blueberries. The blueberries are really good. I'm gonna have some Triscuits today with this. Yeah. I am going to make basically like a little charcuterie kind of thing. But yeah, I like to pick around and eat a lot of different things. I am a snacker. I have very little, if any, food restrictions. I try not to have any food restrictions at all, especially if you've had an eating disorder in the past, to not like get back in that place where you're trying to cut everything out and label foods as good or bad. Although I do believe some foods are really nutritious for you, and honestly, dare I say, better for the health and longevity of your body. I don't limit myself with food, and that has been a big part of my recovery. So enough talking about that. So I figured, honestly, with the theme of talking about school, things like that, we should do like a little reading wrapped books I've read this year. And also just show you some of the things I just checked out at the library. I don't know how many of you guys are like fans of reading or just like hearing about new things or what people's, into at the moment, things like that. But give this a thumbs up if you enjoy seeing what we're reading or being curious about it. I read like some random books this year. They weren't all, some of them were fiction, some of them were nonfiction. I will say I lean more on the nonfiction side of enjoying reading, and I also start several books that I end up not finishing. I have a hard time keeping my attention span long enough to finish a book, but I have finished several books this year. I think I've read 12 books this year. But let me show you first what I picked out from the library. Number 1, Cooking for Two, America's Test Kitchen. You guys, don't knock the library for getting new books, like things that just came out. These hardcover books, it's like so expensive, and sometimes you just want to look through things, like especially recipe books. we only ever like what, 5 or 10 recipes. So just get a book from your local library, sift through it, pick out your 5, 10 recipes you want to make. Okay, another cookbook. Korean Food Made Simple. Instant noodles with spicy rice cakes and fish cakes. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of this type of stuff online about like adding these like really like chewy looking rice cakes to ramen and stuff. Seems really good. Homemade-ish. Another cookbook. What's going on, girl? Must be hungry. I think this is what the cover is. Chorizo and black bean chili. That looks good. Buttered kimchi and beet oven fried rice. Looks good. Creamy pickled chili dip. Looks good. This is Victorian Modern. I haven't had a chance to look through this, but Ashley did, and Ashley said that she really liked this book. And you know, Ashley loves a lot of color, so I think she was saying that she really appreciated like the different styles that this magazine showed off, like lots of pops of color. I feel like I'm doing a really bad job of showing you what's in these books. Apparently couldn't be like a kindergarten teacher because I feel like they're always just doing this. I have to practice my claw grip. Oh, well, now that I've discovered it. Now I'm going to share a little bit of the books that I have read already this year. So I'll go through that and just give a tiny little blurb for each. Brief note, a book that I'm reading right now is Couples of the Bible 1-year devotional. I'm reading this with Isaac. I'll have it linked down below in case you've been wanting to go through a little Bible study with your partner. It's definitely unique, and they like to kind of jump into the story and take time to imagine what it would be like to be the couple in the Bible. So they kind of walk through an interpretive storytelling of this is what it was probably like to be in their shoes. And so you got to take it with a grain of salt. I'll say that. I'm not going to share all of the books that I've read this year because they're not all worthy of being shared, but I'll share some of that were my favorites. Okay. This one, Seal of God. I loved this book. I really feel like I devoured this book. I have a thing where I love learning about the Navy SEALs. I'm not even a military enthusiast, if you will, but I have a fascination with the Navy SEALs. And this book really puts it into perspective. I mean, he tells you straight up what it is like, but it's very clear, the picture that he paints of the gospel, and it's really his testimony that shines. So I love that. I'll have it linked down below. Totally recommend that if you're looking for a read. I also read the book Between Pain and Grace. So this book really focuses on the topic of suffering and where God is in that. So if you have been wrestling with this topic of pain and suffering, I would say totally check out the book if you want. It's definitely a higher level read. I would say it's not like a simple, oh, I'm reading this now, I have the answers. I definitely left feeling like, man, there's still a lot to wrestle with, and I probably didn't get as much out of that book as I could. I read Pride and Prejudice. That was a great book. Love it, of course. The movie is phenomenal. Love the movie. The book and the movie were great. I love them both. I read also The Soul of Shame, and this book was definitely fascinating. I really liked it a lot. It has definitely I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, a clinical edge to it, in the sense that the person who is writing it is a medical doctor, so he can dig deeper than just, you know, the typical everyday blabberings about how we feel. Like, he goes into the science of things. So if you're interested in more of like a scientific explanation of shame, but also he does a really good job of bringing the gospel into it and explaining how shame is really detrimental to how we live out our lives in Christ, and how it's really the antithesis of what it means to live in the light of the gospel. And it's really good. I left feeling like, man, that was a good read, worth my time. I read this book, Satan Fears You'll Discover Your True Identity by Charles Kraft. Charles Kraft is an author that kind of has a special edge in the topic of spiritual warfare. I believe his more well-known book is called... Yeah, I think his more well-known book is called Defeating Dark Angels. I'll have both down below, but I'll say the book that I read most recently by him I felt was really good. It targets especially issues for those who have identity problems and who felt, from the time that they're born, feelings of being unloved, unwanted, and how the enemy, the devil, is using that as a leverage against us from living in freedom. So I read this book, Irene Hannon's Starfish Pier. This is like a fiction romance novel. I don't know if the author is Christian. I really don't know. But it was a very clean romance book, which was nice. And actually there were real life topics that I felt she handled really well and in an honoring way, at least I believe, to the Christian values that we have. So there are like topics on there on alcoholism, abortion, euthanasia, and then lastly, I just read this for school. It's a textbook, so probably not something you would be interested in naturally, but hey, it's there. I hope that you enjoyed this. Comment down below what favorite books you've read this year. If you could pick one book to share with somebody that you would say they have to read in 2025, what would it be? Comment down below what your 2025 must-read book is. So curious about it, and I like to do research on books, and I have a whole thing on my Goodreads of books that I want to read in the future. So yeah, curious about what those are, and I love you. I'll see you in another video, likely tomorrow. Happy Vlogmas. Love being with you guys. Excited to interact with you in the comments. Bye.